I'm going to start this video with I'm wrong. Hello, hi, welcome. I'm the War Chief of Light. Well, you can call me PBG, Peebs, whatever you feel like. And today we're going to have some fun because this video is something I didn't expect. I watched Ember's Arcade come up with a video. The title caught me, and what a title. And I'm going to start this video by being honest with my bias. I didn't expect this video. I was dead wrong about it. Usually, when you get a title like The Problem with YoshiP, you're usually in for a shallow experience of a video with a couple talking points that really anyone should know, and some slinging of insults, and usually not a whole lot of substance. And some rage bait because, of course, you get none of that with this. You get well-documented, legitimate criticisms. Ember's Arcade did something different. They delivered a video that is actually something that can be discussed, that is kind, and still remains in that debatable category. So, we're going to go over it. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it because I don't agree with everything. But again, they're awesome points to talk about, so let's get into it real quick. The video starts with being honest and open about how Final Fantasy XVI sucked. I'm gonna start disagreeing out of the gate. I liked Final Fantasy XVI, but I am the target audience. I do like a very heavy narrative-driven game, and it fit for me. I'm aware of that and can sit there and be like, okay, I get it. There are some people it's not for, and turns out that's a lot more than we think it is, and that's fine. So right away, that's what we're doing. We're comparing how the same director did both games. Ember's next points are twofold. The gameplay is minimal and dumbed down to get you back to the storytelling, and the storytelling is the moment, the golden piece. That is what you should be focusing on rather than actual gameplay. And a few examples he uses of that is that there's not enough gameplay, and that the gameplay there is way too simple. I mostly actually agree with this. And it's something I've been saying about 14 for a long time. The reality is you can sit down and do a quest, read the quest, cutscene, more reading, then go get something, more reading, maybe a cutscene. You can do this 3 or 4 times before you actually have combat, where it's 1 or 2 enemies and moving on. The player is not doing a whole lot, right? And that is 100% something that I have been saying. We need either more time to breathe between the quests, maybe shorter quests and saving the cutscenes for the bigger moments, or more go kill me 10 monster type quests. And Final Fantasy XVI had that same kind of cadence, only a little bit different. In Final Fantasy XVI, you had fetch quest, fetch quest, fetch quest. Might have killed something, but they were easy as peasy. You bring it back, fetch quest, fetch quest, fetch quest, bring it back, and then all of a sudden, climax started to hit. You're like, okay, whoa. Finally, when you hit the climax, it was pretty big. Or have you seen the Akon fights? Baby, they're so good. Anyway, the part that I disagree with isn't that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. He's right. The part I disagree with is it's easy. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say it's a bit of a privileged take to believe that it's easy. Stick with me again. Stick with me. This is a discussion. I'm not insulting the man. The reason why I believe that is that Final Fantasy XVI is an action RPG. And to me, this is a debate we can have another day, but games that are meant for a broad audience, like Final Fantasy, should have an easy mode. They should. Their audience is a lot. That's what they want. They want broad. They need an easy mode. And I am in that party. I did not find the combat easy on the boss fights. I struggled. But again, that's what that's for, right? I also agree in the opposite sense. Final Fantasy XVI needed hard mode from the get-go and then expert mode later, right? Because that level of difficulty is not okay for everybody. How hard is it to just 1, 2, 3, and then the New Game Plus instead of keeping it behind New Game Plus? So I agree with him there. It definitely shouldn't have been there. And as for Final Fantasy XIV, World of Warcraft doesn't have difficult quests either. It's not hidden behind these difficult things and we need to make the players work harder. No. These games are built for you to get to the end so you do shit with your friends. That's the point. With World of Warcraft, that's the like express point. We want you to get that. In Final Fantasy XIV, they want you to enjoy the story, but play with your friends. So it's kind of like do it slow, but also it's a little bit disjointed. So it being easy is the point. It's an MMO. It's not meant to be hard as you're leveling. It's meant to be hard at the end. And that's fine. So here, that's where I disagree with him just a little bit. He does get into a discussion about the no-clip interview where YoshiP gave out how he managed that team to deliver A Realm Reborn. And he honestly believes that YoshiP either still functions that way or that old mentality, that specter he calls it, is still looming above the team. This one is also a big disagree with me. And the reason why is actually in the no-clip interview. YoshiP goes on to explain in that same groups of sentence about how it was a terrible idea to manage a company like that and to manage a project. He was managing people to the minute. It's super micromanaged. And he jokes about that project management style and says, hey, don't do that. It was miserable. Don't do that.
手法のちょっと変形型ですね。ただ最後に言っときますけど、このマイクロマネージメント普通じゃないのでおすすめしないですよ。2年弱で MMORPG を作る。逆に言うとスタッフにも2年かからず終わるからこのマネージメント。だから今は我慢してって言ってやってもらったものなので、一般的には絶対おすすめしないです。細かすぎます。
So what that tells me is they're not doing it today. Okay. I can also say that for the most part, at least from the outside looking, and remember we are not employees there, we cannot confirm work conditions. But what we can confirm is how a project is delivered. And Final Fantasy XIV is a simple project. Hear me out for a second, okay? The reason why is because it has a very consistent cadence. We deliver XYZ at Z time, move on to the next thing. Each patch contains about the same amount of content. Maybe a new thing thrown in here and there, but listen, you know when your raids are, you know when your equipment increase is going to be. They have that plan. It is their golden standard. That is the template, and they use that template religiously. So what that tells me, at least from somebody outside looking in, is I don't believe people are kind of stuck behind that, but what I do believe is that they're stuck behind the template. That is the problem. Because a template like that, the big disadvantage is it stifles innovation. We can't deliver a different set of things or more raids because it's not in the format of, okay, this was due this week, that was due that week. It doesn't sit in the template. So it stifles innovation. And that is what I believe is the problem with the project management style. Is it lacks innovation due to how long they've been doing it the same way every day. So we don't agree, but we agree there's something wrong. There's also something to be said about the types of quests that people are given, whether it's the same stuff over and over and over again. Now, Final Fantasy XVI had no excuse for this. Everything was a fetch quest. He's right, it's bullshit. As for Final Fantasy XIV, there's not a lot of different types of quests. Again, think of World of Warcraft. There's not a whole lot of variation. Kill 10 boars, great. Defend this person, great. But there's no variation either. Okay? Let me give you the example he uses in the video in the cooking competition in Dawn Trail. That would have been cool where you could have had to pick out which way to put it in the right order, make a little puzzle out of it. You cook it with Waklamat, or like you put the ingredients in and she cooks it. You know what I mean? There was shit you could do to make things different. Absolutely. And that doesn't affect the actual, like, level of difficulty. And I know he mentions that there's stuff that Final Fantasy did try in Endwalker that he really liked. I'm gonna have to partially disagree because the reality is that the community came back and was like, no, we don't like that. And I didn't like it either. Like sneaky quests. I'm sorry. No. I don't play sneaky games for a reason. No thanks. And it doesn't really fit the MMO genre either. Even the sneaky quests on Warcraft, there's a few that have come by and they weren't well received either. So I get that feedback. So a little bit of disagreeing there as well. But one of the cooler quests that he does mention that I wish that Final Fantasy would have pulled off, the attack on Tuliulal. Can you imagine? I spent like the night thinking about how cool the invasion of Tuliulal would have been. Imagine you had a defense mechanism. Imagine that you had like tower defense or something. Imagine that you had to take on waves. There's so many waves of enemies. Imagine that you had to team up with the champion of Tuliulal. That's Bakul Jaja, by the way. He is, we're not fighting about that one. He just is. You know what I mean? Your newfound friendship back to back, fighting a group of enemies, then fighting your way to the top. They could have done something so cool. It could have been great. I mean, you could have been rescuing people too. Maybe if you're a healer, you had a few quests to heal people along the way. Like, there's options here. This could have been something. It was a cutscene. A great cutscene. I'm not arguing that. This is not me saying the cutscenes suck. They don't. What I'm saying is maybe let the people play and have cutscenes. Ember believes that you feel like a spectator watching the story unfold rather than being involved with the choices and, again, the quest types. And Final Fantasy 16, yeah, it really does feel that way. He's right. He is very right. And 14, for the most part, he's right too. And it's even more right in Dawntrail than like the other expansions because you're building this new story. So you're literally watching someone else's story. Right? ARR was the same way. I agree with his next point about that too. He compares it to Shadowbringers in the sense that Shadowbringers was the same way. Like, listen, as discussed in the beginning, it's a template. So that being said, he's like, there was not a whole lot of combat and stuff and not a whole lot of action, but you didn't care because you were so enthralled with the story. Well, yeah, you were in the climax. Of course it was great. It was amazing. So much shit was going on. In comparison to today, where we can't hide behind an epic climax like that and Heidelins. We can't hide behind that. We have these minor characters that we're starting to build to be major characters. So it's very evident in Dawntrail. The next point he had, I won't lie to you, I never noticed it. And not only is he right, he is dead right. He is right on every goddamn point. And it's the map design. The map design is extremely simple. The map design is the same map design as A Realm Reborn. Again, dead right. Every single point. Zones were beautiful. Did you interact with it? No. It's just there to be pretty, and that's where they tell the story. That's the background. You're not in there. You're not digging in. You're not playing in it. It's not easy to fly across. It's not cohesive. And has no reason for you to explore it. Treasures was something that he suggested, and that's something World of Warcraft does, which forces people to go in and check this stuff out and maybe find a cool thing that gives you tokens or something of some sort. And I think something like that could work for Final Fantasy 16. His next big point was show, don't tell, which he was very upset with Final Fantasy 16 for it, and 14. And this one, I think we're going to have to disagree on just a little bit. 16, there were a few tell and show, especially with the map and the board, where they were showing you the political side of stuff. If the game would have been a little longer, you could have gotten into that political nonsense without having to, excuse me, I'm a teacher, here's the map. You know what I mean? But 14, I'm going to argue. The show don't tell, I find Final Fantasy 14, because they build stuff up heavily. It's all dialogue. It's all story. So they have time to really push it up. And they don't always give you the hints and stuff. Do you remember at the end of Elidibus? What about the axe at the end of Shadowbringers? Nobody told us to take it. As for the don't tell part, I think other competitors have it worse. Let me give you an example of something that would totally make sense from Warcraft. Champion! they dropped that item. You must go get it before this happens to save the world. But they have to tell you. The story is so short that if they don't tell you that what that means, what that does, a lot of games struggle with this, and that is the illusion of choice. Okay, and a lot of times that means I'm going to give you two options. They are the same. Now, the examples that he used was gear. I think this rings true with Final Fantasy 16, more than it does 14. 16, you upgrade your gear, you can't tell. Nothing but the sword changes, first of all. And second of all, you don't do more damage. You kill shit just as fast as you just did. As for 14, obviously, listen, stats get bigger, you do more damage, understood. The part that he complains about is that it's a very same system every time, which he's right. There's no big changes to how gearing is or ever has been since Heavensward. It's a template. And how you obtain gear? Extremely linear. And again, there's not a whole lot of choice. This is what you're presented with. You want more gear, this is what you gotta do. When we compare it to its competitors like World of Warcraft, this is something that was a problem at one point, and today is, I don't want to say solved, because not quite, but they have come strides forward. Today, there's a bunch of ways to get gear, there's a bunch of ways to get great gear. You don't have to do the popular thing to get gear. You don't. You can do the thing you want to do to get gear. The only point that I disagree with Embers on this point is he said he didn't like the recommended feature on 14. And listen, if the numbers go up and you need that piece of gear, yeah, let the machine do it. I didn't like Warcraft where you had to be like, let me go to this website and compare. Like, gearing shouldn't be a puzzle either. Now, we touched a little bit of this earlier in the video, but quest design is his last point. And he did talk about Endwalker Shift, which we discussed earlier about sneaking, and I don't like sneaking. So I understand that that's what he wants, and that's where I disagree. Let me introduce you another option. Again, we're going to compare this part to its major competitor, World of Warcraft. They have climax quests. That can be taking control of an airship and doing the pew-pew, raising armies to attack a big boss at the end. That can be a lot of different things, and usually they're interactive and different. Another thing you'll see in World of Warcraft quests is that you may have super serious and then a few silly peppered in because, you can't just keep everything on that same curve. So they have a lot of variety. So that way you're not like, oh, this happens all the time. No. Final Fantasy 14 could take advantage of something like that, where the quest is just a little different because it's that moment. They really do need to switch some stuff up for that bell curve to be more agreed upon. And that's what you're fighting for, right? It's what anybody's fighting for. The bell curve. What that means is you're looking to please the majority of players. The bell. I'm on the outlier. I like the reedy stories because they're fun. For me. That doesn't mean the grand majority will sit there for 2 hours reading. The grand majority will want stuff peppered through. And then there's some people on the other extreme that like combat all the time. At that point, I would suggest World of Warcraft. You see what I mean? There can be everywhere in between. We just need to be more in between. And finally, the point that I'm going to repeat that Ember said, because he was 1000% correct when he said it, and it's a point that everyone, everywhere needs to hear. YoshiP's not your friend. Square Enix is not your friend. They are corporations. They are selling you a product. You are allowed to criticize that product. Preferably in a kind way so people can address some of the situations. They're employees too on the other end. There's no reason they have to go through hell because you don't like something. But they are still corporations. We shouldn't be putting these people on pedestals, even if we really like their product, which again, I really do. So I'm not sitting here saying, I don't like Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy. Nobody should be on a pedestal, especially not a corporation. So he's dead right. They are not your friends. They are selling you a product. And we today criticized it a little bit and talked about some of our opinions, whether we agreed and disagreed. And to be honest, I agreed with 90% of that video. I could sit down with a glass of wine, depending on Ember's age, I have no idea, and just talk it out over these points, because this is a really good discussion. It's not hateful, it's not unkind. It's really, hey, you know what? What can we do to improve this? Where do you sit on that? Deep down, we need more videos like Embers and a whole lot less empty, this game sucks. Let me know what you think. Please keep it in discussion, because that's the point of this video. A healthy discussion on the subject. And in the meantime, have a legendary night. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you guys again on the next one. Bye. Corporations are not people. Mm-mm. Not even your favorite shoe company, not your favorite game company. No, they're not people.